Hey guys. So, to finish my project, this is one of the last things that I'm doing. I decided that I was going to interview myself. So, I have a couple of questions that I normally ask everyone else if you've been watching this entire thing, and then a couple others that are tailored specifically to me. So, my first question to myself is, how did you know Barbara York? So, I first met Barbara York in Manhattan, Kansas, at a tuba euphonium conference hosted by Dr. Maxwell at K-State. Doug Witten, Dr. Doug Witten from Pittsburgh State was my undergraduate teacher. I play the piano a little bit. I play at church, can function pretty well, but I'm not great at it. And Barbara York needed a page turner. I think this was probably 2008, 2009, somewhere right around there. And I had no idea who this woman was, but one day Doug was like, hey, I volunteered you to turn pages for this pianist. And I was like, oh, okay. I was like, well, what do I need to wear? And, so I showed up to like a rehearsal or something, and I had never in my life been around a pianist that was that good. She just knew what to do. She could respond. I think I turned for like 8 different tuba players and euphonium players, and I saw everything that they messed up on and everything that she immediately caught. And I was just fascinated that someone could be that good at piano. At this point in time, I had no idea that she was a composer. We went through the entire conference. One of the last times that I turned pages for her during that, I turned the page and it was just completely blank, without skipping a beat, without missing any notes. Barbara calmly, it wasn't calm, reached over and whooped, just ripped the page, okay? And she got done and she looked at me and she said, I am so sorry, I forgot to tape that page. And I was just absolutely mortified that I was turning for this fabulous pianist and missed a turn technically, but it really wasn't my fault. So she was very gracious and took all the blame, and we became good friends after that. Before I left for the conference, she actually signed, I meant to pull these out. She actually signed several of the pieces. She signed several of my pieces, and I still have those. I think the one that's probably the most dear to me is the Elegy for an Angel. She gave me quite a few pieces. I think it was at least 6 or 7, maybe even 8, because I think she gave me like one for each recital that I turned for. So, here's the front of the piece, Elegy for an Angel. You can tell it's starting to get pretty worn. I'm trying to take good care of it. And then on the inside cover, right there, okay? Most of them she just signed like love you and then wrote her name. This one says, Dear AJ, this was written for Mike Lynch's St. Bernard Angel who died. You may not quote me, LOL, X's Barbara. And at this point, I didn't know who she was really, other than this really cool older lady that I was turning pages for. I didn't really understand the connections that she had to my immediate tuba career through Doug Witten, through Mike Fisher. And she, like I went home and I think I was doing like a joint recital or something, and Doug was like, well, didn't Barbara give you a bunch of music? I was like, yeah, sure, because, so I was like, well, what about this Elegy for an Angel? And he said, yeah, play that. So I started playing it, and there was just a moment, in my playing that I just thought, I didn't know that the tuba could make melodies like this. Like, obviously I know what the tuba can do. I'm a tuba player. I didn't know that someone could put it on paper and make my heart feel that way, and just stigmatize my brain to. She just got it. I wound up becoming Facebook friends with her. We have lots of Facebook exchanges, and I talked to her about the piece, and she did not accompany me on that one because she was not at Pittsburgh State yet, but I believe it was Lori Keeley. She's one of the class piano teacher at Pittsburgh State, and it was great. I love that piece. It has a very special place in my heart. And then she actually came to Pittsburgh State not too long after that, during I was finishing up my undergrad, so it was probably 2011, 2012. And we played a recital together. I believe, I can't remember which piece of hers that I played. It was Three Romances for Susie, because she wrote on there, this was beautiful playing XX Barbara. And then I played her concerto with the Pittsburgh State Wind Ensemble. And then at that point, like, I had played several of her pieces just in like small joint recitals or whatever. Then I started attending UMKC. And the very first time that I played in studio class, and at UMKC, Tom has us play every other week, and we had to use pianist. It was pretty rigorous, but I came out literally being able to put together almost anything in 1 or 2 rehearsals, which I'm ever thankful for. So the first thing that I played, I was so petrified. I was like, oh my gosh, these people are so much better than me. And so I played Sea Dreams, which was the first piece that she ever wrote for tuba. She wrote it for Mike Fisher. And Ryan Snell was like, dude, you're awesome, blah, blah, blah. And everyone's just like, this is so cool. I've never heard this. And it made me feel so much better about myself. Because I was just scared as shit to go up there and play in front of those people. And I wound up doing a joint recital with Ryan that semester, and I played one of her pieces or something. And, I started talking about the relationship that I had with her. She was very much like a grandma to me, maybe even a mom, but I would say definitely like a third grandma for sure. Megan is kind of like a sister, her daughter, and the relationship just evolved from there. She would call me every now and then, usually when she was a couple deep in a bottle of wine, and we would just chat. She would tell me about new pieces. She would send me new pieces before they were published. Don't tell Brian Dowdy that. We developed an awesome relationship. She became such a huge mentor in my life. Whenever I was trying to decide where I wanted to do my doctorate, she messaged, I believe it's Dan Parentoni, who surprisingly remembered who I was, which I was just proud of that. I believe she messaged someone in Texas, and she messaged Tom Stein, without me knowing, saying, he's mine, he's looking, what's going on, what can you do? And just the kind of person that went to the place that she didn't have to do, and she did, which is what made her so special as a human being. I could talk for hours about this, so I'm going to ask myself the next question. So what was it like working with Barbara? So I have played with numerous good pianists. The best pianist I think I've ever played with was Dan Velliser, who plays with the Kansas City Symphony. That dude could literally sit down and play anything the first time he saw it. And then Barbara was by far the most musical pianist and intuitive pianist that I've ever played with. She anticipated things, and it was like she was just this mother figure that constantly was there, coddling you along, who never let you fail. And it's so rare to find someone that can do that. And to have that kind of experience at Pittsburgh State University in the middle of Kansas with literally a world-class pianist was something that I will be eternally grateful for. And always a little bit snobbish, because let's be real, sometimes when you go play with pianists, it's you never know what you're going to get. And with Barbara, you always knew that you were going to get it. The next question that I have for myself is, why are you doing this project? And it kind of ties into what I just asked myself. So the reason that I'm doing this project, Barbara passed away, I believe it was November 6th of 2020. And right around that, about 5 weeks before that, my sister had passed away. And that was also the semester that I was doing the second round of my doctoral comps. They were written questions from my my committee, which is Tom Stein, Keith Benjamin, the trumpet professor, and Professor Steve Davis, who was the wind symphony guru. So Professor Davis's question was, write 2 pages about 5 different pieces for tuba and wind band and the idea behind it's that you can, when you get your first university job, you can say, I've got these 5 pieces ready to go. I've even got the program notes. And I remember I wrote about Reflections on a Mississippi by Michael Daughtry. James Grant's Three Furies, which actually does have band accompaniment. Did the Alexander Atunian Concerto, and I can't remember the other one off the top of my head. And these folks all had websites that had all of the information that you would ever need. Just everything that you could think of. Like if you're writing program notes, or you just need information about a piece, like it existed. And then when I went to do this for Barbara, because I picked her concerto to write about for those 2 pages for her. And the only thing that I really found was her bio on Cimarron Music's website, which is the one that she wrote, and it is pretty humble for what Barbara is and what she's done. And of course, I know Barbara I knew Barbara personally, and I knew, stories that just the general person's not going to know. So when my original dissertation was supposed to be, I was commissioning a piece from her for tuba for a male baritone. My fiance is a baritone, and I believe she was probably going to write piano. I told her, I said, it's entirely your choice. She had us write letters explaining, who Topher was to me and what I am to Topher. I don't think that either of us have ever really read them. But we wrote them to Barbara, and we did that about a year and a half before she passed. And I think I was scheduled to be the second to last or the last piece, because I know that I think it was Dating Roland had a piece that she did not get to, and then Gail and I believe Deanna Swoboda had a piece that she just didn't get to. So obviously when she passed, I had to figure out what in the world I was going to do, because I didn't want to just record pieces of hers, which I did wind up recording 5 of her pieces that are on this website. But doing that question from Professor Davis, I realized Barbara's gone. This has to change. So we can't let who she was, her music, information about her pieces, aside, in tuba euphonium world, between tuba solos, euphonium solos, and all of the chamber works that involve either of those instruments, there's over 40 pieces. I think with trombone, that puts it right around 50. There's a couple of brass quintets that really aren't that popular, which surprises me. But aside from that, Barbara has an entire theater career that, if you read her bio, she won a Dora Mavor Moore Award, which is the Canadian equivalent of like an off-Broadway Tony or something like that, which is awesome. She has written children's works for orchestra. I believe she has a book with a soundtrack out. I can't remember the name off the top of my head. She has works for vocal music. for band, for orchestra, for clarinet, for bassoon. She wrote a bassoon concerto for her daughter Megan, for horn. And there's all kinds of just random chamber music that people commissioned Barbara to write. And so eventually, we'll get everything on here so that it's an entire homage and just a celebration of who she was and what kind of composer she was. We'll get that on here. But I wanted to start this and start the spark, because Tuba Euphonium was probably her most performed works, if you'd ask Megan. So I almost feel like it's my duty, just because of the relationship that I had with her, the access that I have to Megan. I can call her and be like, hey, what was this? And she'll usually answer or send a text to be like, hey, I'm busy, what's up? And it would be a shame to not let this happen and not go forward with it when it's very needed. If that kind of explains what I'm doing and what my intentions are. So the last question, I asked this to lots of folks, all of the people that I've interviewed so far. What is Barbara York's legacy? So in some of the interviews that I did with Gail and Travis, Barbara said, I don't get to write my own legacy. She said something to the effect of, if you're a lawmaker and you wrote the Constitution, then that's probably going to be your legacy, because that's a pretty big deal. But with artists, it's much more fickle, because those who play and teach are the ones who decide which pieces are performed. So what do I think Barbara York's legacy is? I think that Barbara filled a need and a hole. And I think that she would say the same in the tuba euphonium repertoire. Obviously, I wasn't around 50, 60 years ago when tuba started really becoming a solo instrument. And there were most definitely folks that wrote kind of in the style that Barbara does, but nothing that really just absolutely captivated music in the way that she does. Mike Fisher said to Barbara after one of her first pieces, well, you might be the next Alec Wilder, and she thought that Michael was just insane. And I actually don't think that Mike Fisher is insane for saying that, because out of the most recent composers, we have Elizabeth Rahm, who has contributed some very awesome pieces and valuable things that are still done. Definitely like John Stevens, Anthony Plogue. They've got a number of pieces that are going to be played for a long time. And I'm not sure that I can think of anyone off the top of my head that have contributed the amount of literature that Barbara has, and with how much quality is in that literature. There's one piece of Barbara's that she just absolutely hated, and I'm not going to tell you what it was because she told me I could never tell. But out of the 18, 19 tuba solos, that's one that she just didn't like, and that's okay. So I think her legacy is one that already exists. Her music is played. It's adored by audiences, no matter what I'm playing on a recital. I always program one of Barbara's pieces because I promised myself that a few years ago. I said, I'm just going to always program a Barbara York piece. And the reason why is because your audience enjoys it. Every time I play one of Barbara York's pieces, the audience comes up and just rants and raves about, I didn't know the tuba could do that. I didn't know that you could tell me a story like that. I felt the music. People that don't know anything about music, but just enjoy supporting the arts. Excuse me one moment. So I think that Barbara bridged a connection between tuba and euphonium solo artists or solo literature and an entire audience that might not have ever understood it or appreciated it without her pieces existing. I miss Barbara. Um, it's it's been really hard, especially since she died 5 weeks after my sister. So obviously, I went through that grief process, and I'll never be over it, but I'm learning how to live with it. Through this process of building this website, recording her pieces, talking to her friends, people that commissioned her, it's really helped my heart heal, and it's helped solidify my relationship with her. And it's made me appreciate it so much. So Barbara, thank you very much. Thank you for the music.